But for me, IFRS 17 is a bit like a marathon, but it's also going to need a sprint finish. Our recent survey with about 300 participants showed us that people are just over halfway there with quite a lot of work to do and still only now 18 months to the effective date.
You're listening to Rethinking Insurance, a podcast series from Willis Towers Watson, where we discuss the issues facing P&C, life, and composite insurers around the globe, as well as exploring the latest tools, techniques, and innovations that will help you to rethink insurance.
Hello and welcome to Rethinking Insurance. I'm your host, Vittorio Magatti, and today I'm delighted to be joined by my guest, Teresa Murphy, Director and UK Life IFRS 17 Lead, and Andreas Schröder, Global IFRS 17 Life Technology Leader. Welcome, Teresa and Andreas.
Thanks very much, Vittorio. Lovely to be talking to you.
Hello, everybody.
In today's episode, we are going to explore the IFRS 17 principle for life insurers. But first, let's find out a little bit more about our guest. Teresa, Googling you, it looks like you are also a professor in the Columbian College of Arts and Science. Any thoughts on feedback on this?
I Googled too. I wanted to be the Teacher of the Year from Miami.
That's good. Andreas, are you instead a Canadian author, right?
Yeah, not really. So my name is pretty common, particularly in Germany. So Andreas Schröder. So I think it's also well used around the globe. So probably that's not me. But I also found an actor, which which I might prefer.
That's perfect. So going through the podcast of today, so IFRS 17 principle for life insurers, I would like to start with the first question for you. So with an effective date of IFRS 17, incorporating the amendments to annual reporting periods beginning on after 1st January 2023, and surely life insurers should have all the people, process and technology chosen, trained and embedded, with just some testing and fine-tuning to go. But let me know, in many cases, does not seem to be the case. What are you seeing and why?
Great question, Vittorio. And I do, that's where it would be. It would be close to being done. But for me, IFRS 17 is a bit like a marathon, but it's also going to need a sprint finish. Our recent survey with about 300 participants showed us that people are just over halfway there with quite a lot of work to do and still only now 18 months to the effective date. I think there are quite a lot of reasons here, but for me, IFRS 17 is the widest ranging change that we've seen in our industry so far. I think Solvency II felt big, but we owned it really within actuarial, whereas IFRS 17 is requiring data, finance, and actuarial systems to really talk and integrate and touching all sorts of processes. Firms have called out many of their own challenges. Methodology and systems are still top there, and I'll probably leave Andreas to talk a bit about systems, but methodology is challenging. IFRS 17 is set up as a principles-based approach, and so fitting principles to your own business can be tough. The standard isn't going to tell you everything you need to do, but you need to make decisions, and those decisions impact the data you have and the processes that you need to build. Particularly in the area I work in the UK, we're seeing a lot of frustration with methodology not being able to get sort of review and sign off from the auditors, and so we can have differences between group and local teams, and it's very difficult for programs to progress with that. Data and systems all are having to change for IFRS 17, and that's a big undertaking, and it's going to take a lot of time. Internal processes are quite tricky here too. You need to get the right people, the right skilled people and resources, but keep them on your projects. It's a very long project, and it's hard to maintain those resources and morale for those teams over long, complicated projects. Taking really good decisions and not getting lost in technical accuracy are often stumbling blocks for people as well.
Many thanks, Teresa. So it looks like there are some open issues on systems and processes. I don't want to say so many open issues, but probably there are some of those. And what impact does that have on insurers' technology solution for IFRS 17?
Yeah, thank you, Vittorio. And as Teresa already mentioned, so it is a wide, let's say, many systems are impacted, many processes. and it's starting with, let's say, the old age policy admin systems the companies have at the hand. Some have one, some have more, or a series. Then we have they need actuarial cash flow modeling systems. In the mature markets like Europe, these are already existent, but we have also clients which are starting with actuarial cash flow modeling from the beginning. They have nothing. They need really starting from scratch here, and these systems need to be properly built. And then we have the obvious gap for everybody, which are the IFRS 17 calculations, typically done in an IFRS engine. Yeah, so this is the first gap which needs to be filled, which the companies have been searching for. Many have done their decisions already because of the timeline, of course, but some are still deciding, and basically these are the last ones deciding on that. And then we have the accounting and financial reporting systems which are fed by these. Yeah, so a huge range of systems involved. For existing actuarial cash flow systems, they need to get IFRS 17 ready. So you need to tweak certain cash flows, add certain cash flows to the system. So this is, let's say, the minimum task there, which almost have been done in the majority of the cases, I would say. And then the IFRS engine calculations, of course, need to be compliant, but also need to have a rich output to be able to fill all the disclosure requirements, which are very, very big. And then the overall systems must be able, you need to be able to integrate into existing infrastructure. It needs to be able to automate. So you need to have some automation capabilities in your infrastructure to make everything happen in time. So every company basically has its own gaps. So we at Willis Towers Watson, we have a modular software concept in general where we could apply help in any of these gaps. So we provide you with engines or with an automation software or with the whole end-to-end IFRS 17 enterprise solution. So we can help. There are many clients, and we do help our clients in various components in various projects around the world.
Great. I see that there is an exchange of opinion between actuaries and accountants for life insurance related to where the calculation engine should be located. So if near the actuarial cash flow or as a sub-ledger close to the general ledger. What have we actually seen happen in the last couple of years, and what are the main implications of each of those options?
Yeah, Vittorio, this is again a key decision, key decision where to place it, and key decision has been made. And we, as a actuarial software provider, this is our let's say starting point, have built our engine or engines in the actuarial software we have been producing, serving the client bases since a long time. And this has been required by our clients, which are typically the actuaries, the chief actuaries, the risk managers. And this has advantages because the cash flows, which are the basis of IFRS 17, are typically produced in our software and our systems, and therefore the IFRS 17 numbers, the new numbers, should be explained with these in mind, or in very close to these. Yeah, so this has advantages in analyzing numbers, analysis of change, which the actuaries have been doing a long time. So this has huge advantages in analyzing the figures, also in terms of flexibility. Other clients or other, let's say, IFRS 17 projects, I would say, have started on the right-hand side, as you say, on the accounting side, from typically a CFO, maybe with accounting background, or chief accounting has decided we want to buy a subledger, which is driven from basically from their background, and then the developments have been basically from right to the left. starting with accounting figures, starting with reporting figures, but then at some point also the actuaries needs to be involved. And in both cases, the actuarial let's say modeling world has to be mapped to the accounting world, and this needs to be done in any cases. And depending where you have started the journey, this is also what we see in our survey. Each type of clients has gaps in different areas. Yeah, and this is now the task to get these closed, and to particularly to work very closely together. Actuaries, accountants, to get a common understanding of their dedicated, particularly of world, and get the numbers right documented in a seamless way, compliant and understandable. I think this is now the big challenge.
Thanks, Andreas. And jumping on the timing, probably the insurers, or there are different insurers in a different timing, and taking consideration the current moment, some of those are testing the numbers and probably also think about the impact on the planning activities in the future. Other clients and other insurers probably are also investing in the IFRS 17 process and systems, as we discussed before. Teresa, is it too late?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's definitely not too late. But I think people need to really assess their situation realistically and consider where they want to be, where they need to be tactical rather than strategic. Projects like these, the big transformational ones, they're never easy, and they're never going to be a smooth path. And in our experience, where we're actually implementing it, and we are doing this with our clients because we implement our software, but we also, help people as their actuarial team and doing the work for them. Getting to that testing and dry run point can show a lot of issues and sort of mean you need to rethink your plans and do a lot of rework. And then for smaller firms where, they don't have the team size, they don't have the budget of the larger firms, there's going to be huge challenges for those in meeting BAU and IFRS 17 demands. And we've seen from the survey that people are in very different places. Asia Pacific's probably lagging behind a bit relative to EMEA, and obviously the large sort of multinational companies tend to be further ahead than the smaller sort of standalone companies. But it's definitely not too late. For me, I think there's a couple of things that I would get people to think about. So, as Andreas mentioned, sort of decide how and what you're going to do with your IFRS 17, your CSM calculations, and making that technology decision which is right for you. And maybe it's outsourcing it, or maybe it's doing it yourself. But also thinking in that automation. We've seen that automation can be a really key success factor in implementations. And while it's hard to do and it takes that more of your implementation project, in our experience, trying to automate things when you're in real BAU with working day timetables to meet just doesn't happen. So if you're going to automate, now is a real good opportunity to consider that and trying to take advantage of it. Being decisive and pragmatic, there's a lot of decisions to take, but having that view as to where you need to end up and working back to identify the gaps, and then being practical about how you can really close off these gaps is really key at this time when the time window is closing. And what we've seen is really beneficial is to do mini sprints. So work out what your critical blockers are, and then without getting caught up in the wider issues, have a few really short sprints to actually drive through progress in your program to keep it moving forward, and maybe that's actually reallocating your internal team, getting some external support because you're missing some skills gap, but really doing what you can to actually accelerate your program in this time. And we have seen through our survey that, we are seeing an increase in external support for firms over the last year because there is just so much work to do and firms can't do it all themselves. And the other big thing for me is because IFRS 17 touches so many people, you need to communicate and really collaborate well. You need to be sharing it across your department so that you're actually working together, because otherwise, if you don't, it's going to be a very difficult program to get over the line.
Many thanks. Last question for both, starting with Teresa. If you were to give every listening just one piece of key advice to be IFRS 17 ready, so something that they should take away from this podcast and to this week, what it would be?
I was hoping you would take me second because I have two, and I was hoping Andreas would come on. But I've already talked about decision making, so I'm not going to talk about that, although I do see that as key. But for me, get some results out, get some numbers from working on these projects. Actually, when you're talking theory all the time and methodology, it's very hard to stay focused. And as soon as you have numbers and you're actually looking at real results, you get better engagement from your teams, better engagement from stakeholders. And you're starting to build that understanding of IFRS 17, which is really complicated and is going to take some time. So I would look at some numbers if you can.
Yeah, my turn would be to set the approvals in the automation projects which are currently ongoing. Right. So if the project is let's say driven by the actuarial team, involve the accountants and vice versa. Yeah. So who will approve which point of the process, which step, and get the other, let's say, team involved to set the scene for your operating model in the future, and to get the sign off for the important stakeholders.
I would really thank you again to be here as guest. Thanks, Andreas.
Thank you, Vittorio.
And as well, Teresa.
Lovely talking to you.
Thanks for listening to the Rethinking Insurance podcast.
Thank you for joining us for this Willis Towers Watson podcast. For more information, visit the Insights section of willistowerswatson.com.